What's going on, everybody? What is going on? It is Wednesday, January 3rd, 2024, and this is the first midday stream of the year. And what a way to kick it off. But before I go into anything, let me give a shout out to all the people that is in the chat so far. Shout out to everybody who was here. Shout out to everybody on Patreon. Shout out to all of the members. I see I just got a new one. I'll acknowledge that one in a second. Shout out to everybody who follows me on Twitter, Instagram, in the Discord, all of that good stuff. And also today we kicked off the new series with the We Fought Back series, the prologue. Put some fire in the chat if you caught that today. What a way to kick this off, and what a way to keep things going. I'm so glad for that new series. We have quite a journey to go on when that happens. Of course, like I said, it'll be a new episode every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Eastern time. That would be the video for that particular day. But before we go ahead into it, let me go ahead and acknowledge the people who are here so far in the chat. We have Alex Jackson, Grape Shot, Haxon KT, Denise Scales, Vlad, Detroit Kings 313, and shout out to Detroit Kings for becoming a member of the channel. I greatly appreciate it. Donna C, Queen Imani, Derry B, Melanin 100%, Tildog 12, Yatunde the Sketcher, Tamika's Den, Ruthless Millennium 2000, Stalemate, Bot Boy Versus, RG Titan, Deneen Grant, Sir Rantalot, Cosmo Fury, Savion Draco Zero, Catsy, Jago the Rogue, Lady Messenger, Robin Ann Battle, Don P. Ben Yehuda, Inga 71, JM Y'all, Lloyd Sky 9, TSP Cocktail. And I'm trying to see if there's anybody else. Gloria, Black Spider, Buzzer Cam H1. And that is it so far. But yes, we are here today to talk about an interesting topic. This is actually a topic that has been on my mind for maybe the last couple of weeks or so, especially with the release of this new Color Purple movie. And I've seen Professor Black Truth. He's done some he did a couple of commentaries on it. As a matter of fact, A Moment of Truth that he did was loosely tied to that, but not completely focused on that. If y'all saw his Moment of Truth this morning, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And I actually initially was going to do this as a live stream, but it was only going to focus on just that movie and one other movie from a different particular side. But what made me go and expand beyond this is when I had someone who I follow on Instagram had said that they had saw the new Color Purple movie, and it was a guy that they said that had saw it, and they said that, as a matter of fact, let me see if I can actually pull up the message in my DM of what they said exactly, because I want to actually have their words. They said that they changed. He said they changed a few things regarding the storyline of the film. He said you would think they'll have at least one positive image of a black man in there, and that's what they said. It was some other stuff in there, but the message is gone. On Instagram, if you're replying to something, sometimes it'll disappear and you can't see the actual message, but it actually led to that. So I said, you know what? I'm going to expand it just beyond just talking about The Color Purple and one other film, as far as how they deem or see the black male image in these Hollywood productions. And I think it's like a discussion that should have been and needs to continue to be had. So y'all saw the thumbnail, and I put those up there for a reason. And what I did was I went and I found different images, and we're going to run down each one, and I have them in order of the year that the movie was released. So I'm going to start with the women first, and then I'm going to go into the men. And then you're going to see exactly where I'm headed with this, and just understand I Hollywood or Hollyweird, we been peeped your game. And as y'all know, with all midday streams, when I get to the end of the to what I have to say, I will drop the link. and you can go ahead and come up and speak your piece. So, of course, the first movie, let me present my screen right quick. Oh, that's not. The first movie we're going to start with, of course, is the original Color Purple that came out in 1985. Now, anybody who knows me knows that I did not watch the original Color Purple. I did not watch the original Color Purple. I always heard a lot of people, especially a lot of, women and a lot of young girls quote this movie like the back of their hand. Like they recite this thing like it's, for them, it comes as natural as it is to breathe. But based on a lot of the stuff that I've heard, it can't get my eyes. Now, I know it's a lot of people in this chat who probably who have seen the Color Purple, the original Color Purple, and probably even the new one. Those are the ones I really want to hear from the most when I drop that link. And really what it boils down to is a lot of us as Black men did not like how we were represented in that movie, especially when it came to Danny Glover's character of Mr. Like, he literally was like a Oreo. He was like a white man wrapped in melanin. And some of the stuff that I heard, because I would see clips and all types of stuff, I would look up clips of some of the stuff that he would say and all types of stuff like that. And what I didn't like is the fact that what they do with these type of movies, especially ones where they have to make the Black man the antagonist, a lot of the times to Black women, they always like to make it this blanket thing and say, wow, I think a lot of Black men are really, really like this. They'll take something out of fictional work and then try to apply it in reality, when that's definitely not the case. Are there some Black men out there that could be complete monsters? Definitely. Because nobody is perfect. But the way that they paint it is like, not every Black man is like that. But some will take that and literally throw that onto that veil onto every Black man that they could think of. And truth be told, don't think every Black woman loved the Color Purple. Just because that movie seemed to be more geared towards them or more forced to be, put upon them, that wasn't the only. It wasn't. Black women weren't the only ones that wasn't. I mean, Black men weren't the only ones that weren't feeling it. There were some Black women out there that felt some type of way about it too. And maybe it's a thing that some people saw when they were younger, of course, because I'm sure everybody in this chat in 1985 were either one, younger than they are now, clearly, or weren't even born yet. Now, this movie came out in 85. I was born in 89, so this movie is 4 years older than me. And I believe Oprah's character, her husband, Harpo, I believe that was his name, they played him like, from what I've been reading or been seeing, he was pretty much like emasculated. He was pretty much beneath his wife. She was like the alpha female in that relationship, the very dominant one. Like, really, she didn't, like, it's like she ran damn near everything based on clips I've seen. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong. Denise said, I do not have the Color Purple in my digital library. I think I saw Donna C said she saw that movie and she hated it. Vlad said they cut his testicles off according to what I remember. Like I said, I never saw the movie, but if that is true, they basically made him a eunuch. But yeah, when you think of stuff like that, like, why would you think a man would a Black man in particular would appeal to a movie like this? It's just no way. but Hollywood knew exactly what they were doing. Now, there were probably some other movies that were out before The Color Purple that probably did this, but The Color Purple to me really set the bar, like as far as other movies to follow in its footsteps and have a similar narrative, mainly because it got so much praise. It got all these award nominations. And by the way, one thing I do know about the original Color Purple is that the movie was nominated for 11 Oscars. It was nominated for 11 Oscars and won 0. It did not win one Oscar the year that it was nominated. Now, Whoopi Goldberg, to my knowledge, I think she won a Golden Globe for the role of Celie. But when it came to the Oscars, it was a complete washout. Like, not one award won. And I think the reason that is because a lot of people complain, especially a lot of men at that time, complain about how bad that movie was, especially how it misrepresented them, that they probably heard it and decided to not give them any awards. So there's like, oh, well, we'll nominate it. We'll acknowledge that, that you made it, but we won't give you any awards. Inga said people forget that the original book and movie had a lot of academy scenes, and also the author Alice Walker is in Hall L. I actually learned about that today. And also too, Inga, Alice Walker, before she decided to dip to the other side, she was married to a PC man. That tells me all I need to know right there. Donna said Okra is, I call her Okra, is still trying to get that Oscar. Of course she is. Of course she is. She may not get it. I don't think she'll get it like for any performances, but they probably down the line gonna probably give her some kind of honorary Oscar for sure. I can see that happening. But yeah, I did not watch The Color Purple. And when I tell people I've never seen it, they be acting so shocked as if I'm gonna lose my black card if I don't watch The Color Purple. Listen, I'll be fine. I've gone this long without watching the movie. I think I will continue to live my life knowing that I'm in, good spirits and in good health, knowing that I didn't watch this movie. I think I'll be fine. But that's the original Color Purple. So now we're going to move on to the next movie. The next movie I have to talk about is one that I'm sure everybody in this chat, whether man or woman, has seen. And that is Waiting to Exhale. Waiting to Exhale. What's going on, Kendall? I think everybody in this chat has seen this movie. Now, the irony about this movie is that this movie was directed by Forest Whitaker. Forest Whitaker, phenomenal, legendary, iconic actor, and he directed this movie. The soundtrack was actually done by Babyface, another black man. So I found that to be very interesting. And then when you think about how this movie is framed. Now, Waiting to Exhale is nowhere near the gripes that I have with The Color Purple. But it's one thing in particular that I really did not like about this movie with one of the characters. And I know some of y'all are going to think I'm talking about Angela Bassett's character. I'm actually not. I'm actually going to be talking about Whitney Houston's character. Now, Whitney Houston's character, she was a producer for a news network. She moved, I forgot where she moved from, but then she ended up moving to Arizona because that's where all the women live. And she ended up moving there, taking on a job and everything like that. And when I was watching the movie, when she was coming into the party and everything like that, I was wondering why, because when I first saw this movie, I saw it when I was young. So I didn't understand it then until I watched it again when I was older to understand. Oh, so now I see why they look at her that way. Basically, no one's going to say it. I'll say it right now. Whitney Houston's character was basically a hoe. I hate to say it, but she was. Like, when they saw her coming in that room, they already knew who she was. They already knew what she was on. She even said it in her narration that she would end up screwing your man and taking him from you. She said it in her head. I know I'm not the only one that did not hear that. Her character was successful, but she was known to be sleeping with married men and had no problem doing it. But because she presented herself as a classy professional woman, it was easy for her to disguise it. So fast forward a little bit, where we get to the main part of her story, is she ends up meeting or seeing, well, continuing to see the Dennis Haysbert character, whose name was Kenneth. Now, his character was married and had a daughter. And then we find out later on that his wife is dying. Like, she's dying from cancer. So you would think, why are you with this other woman and your wife is dying? You know what this reminds me of? It reminds me of B. Smith's ex-husband. Remember how she was dying and he had a whole mistress living in the house? And according to reports, the mistress was mistreating her even down to her dying day. Like, that man was utter trash. But anyway, she was laid up with a married man and knew this man was married, had a daughter. But what makes this even worse is her mother. Savannah's mother was literally convincing her daughter to be a hoe, talking about he's a good man. Even when she tried to tell her mother that this man is married and has a child, she's trying to change her ways, but her mother keeps trying to leave her in there because apparently he can give her a better life. Even though she's a professional woman, she's a producer, she makes good money, and she could go out there and get any man that she wanted, a single man preferably. But her mother wants her to be with this married man who has a daughter and the wife is dying. It was a money thing. And then, at the end, she finally tells him off to basically, like, we can't be together, go home to your wife, and, kind of breaks it off. But the thing about her character is that she did all of that and they still found a way to redeem her. Okay, my mistake. She was pregnant. My bad. You said she was pregnant? You said his wife was pregnant. Okay, you know what? I did get it mixed up. The Nuke 55 said Wesley Snipes' character was the one that had the dying wife. Okay, I got it mixed up. I told you it's been a while since I've seen this movie. But thanks for the correction. Now that's going into Angela Bassett's character. But yeah, his wife was pregnant. Thanks for correcting me. That makes it even worse, because now you have a child that you already have that's been born, and now you're about to have another child on the way while stringing along this other woman, and now you have your mother in your ear trying to tell you to still stay with this man. Donna said her mother didn't want her to be alone like her. That's fine. You don't want your daughter to be alone, but don't tell your daughter to get with a married man that has a child and one on the way. Really, when you think about it, the only woman in this movie that had a happy ending, so to speak, was Loretta Devine's character. And you didn't expect that because, compared to the other three women, she was seen as the less desirable one. But she's the one that actually ended up in the end finding true happiness. Because, like I said, yeah, Whitney Houston's character that was sleeping around with a married man, Angela Bassett's husband was messing around with a white woman and had the nerve to really tell her that, and we saw that performance. And Layla Rashawn's character, she was messing around with a married man too, and ended up getting pregnant by him, and ended up having to become a single mother. I'm telling you. But the thing of the matter is, with all of that, they still found a way to redeem them, especially Whitney and Layla Rashawn's characters. They still found a way to redeem them. Tamika said there's definitely people like this in real life. Exactly. Art imitating life. I think somebody, Derry B said that as well. Everton, it's like you're speaking, you're speaking right into existence, because that's actually where we're headed next. So I've already talked about Waiting to Exhale. And Everton B says, speak on this next movie. Now, this one right here, oh my God. If you wanted to see a horrible representation of how they portray black men in a movie, look no further than For Colored Girls. Woo! Man. Now, of course, by the time this movie came out, I was already an adult. Of course, when The Color Purple came out, I wasn't born yet. When Waiting to Exhale came out, I was 6. When For Colored Girls came out, I was an adult. I was 21. I think it came out in 2010 or 2011. I don't know. But I was an adult. I do know that. Now, this movie right here made black men look like the absolute scum of the earth. This movie right here, oh my God, where do I even begin with this? Let's start with the heaviest one. Michael Ealy's character, who was married to Kimberly Elise's character, and he was suffering through an intense amount of PTSD because I believe he was in the war. He never truly recovered from it. He couldn't hold down a job. He wouldn't go look for a job. He basically became a bum. He became a raging alcoholic. He was abusive, but really all of it came to a head when he dropped those kids out of that window. I know some of you in this chat probably haven't even seen this movie in a while, but me just even mentioning that part brought a bunch of bad memories back just from that scene alone. That scene was so hard to, that's probably one of the most hardest scenes to watch in any movie I've ever seen. Was that scene right there. And the crazy part about it is, while that was probably one of the worst scenes in the movie, that wasn't the only bad part of it either. Because you had Anika Noni Rose's character who meets a guy who she thinks that likes her. He, he's very charismatic and all these different things like that, but he turns out to be a complete degenerate, and then he later violates her. I don't want to say the actual word. That was also a hard scene to watch, because that whole time when she's getting violated, she's looking at the time so she can keep in mind how long it's been going on. And it's crazy because her character was the most vibrant one of all of them. She was always smiling. She was always like full of life. She was a dance teacher. But then when that happened, she became dim. She became more isolated. She became more cold because he violated her. She trusted this man, and he violated her and her trust. Yeah, her character, really got done like very, very dirty. Then let's talk about Janet Jackson. I know some people in here who watch Power, fans of Amari Hardwick and everything like that, but nobody was a fan of Amari Hardwick in this movie. Because Janet Jackson's character, you find out why she's so cold-hearted when, towards the end of the movie. But then you find out that her husband, who was played by Amari Hardwick, was on the DL. out there messing with men. Ended up catching the gift that unfortunately keeps on giving, and he ended up giving it to his wife. I will say that monologue that Janet Jackson gave at the end when they're sitting on the bed was very well acted, by the way. But when she ended it off with take your things, like pack your bags or whatever she said, and take your HIV with you, my jaw dropped. Vlad said, is this a Tyler Perry movie? Yes, it is. I don't know if you can see it on there, but it says written for the screen, produced and directed by Tyler Perry. This is a Tyler Perry movie. Now, when it comes to Loretta Devine's character, her man, he basically was like he was the least cliche. Well, he was cliche, but he was the least cliche out of all of them. He was just a cheater. Like he was, he just couldn't stay faithful. So I mean, like that's not as big as the previous two that I mentioned. Now, Kerry Washington's character, she was the only character in the movie who had a good man. Her husband, who was a cop, but she went through something traumatic in her life where she couldn't get pregnant because she was violated at one point in time. And I believe that it ended up giving her an STI or something like that. And it ended up messing up something internally in her where she could not have children. But she was in the only one in the movie that had a husband that was a good man. Like he actually treated her well, treated her nice, and he was just a good all around man to his wife, who was played by Hill Harper. But yeah, that movie was a very hard watch. So now we're going to move on from For Color Girls, and we're going to go back to the beginning, but we're bringing it current day because apparently the people felt like, you know what? Making an original Color Purple wasn't enough. Let's go ahead and adapt the Broadway version of it that came out back in the early 2000s into a movie, and let's release The Color Purple again in 2023. Now, I know there are some people in this chat who probably have seen this movie. I won't hold it against you. You can go and watch what you want to watch. But for me, personally, I choose to not watch this movie because of how I feel about the original one. And then when I got what I heard from another person about this movie, as far as how they portray the men in this movie, I was like, oh, they pretty much did it again. So yeah. So I guess they figured, let's adapt the Broadway version of it. Let's throw some music in there. Let's throw some dancing, and that'll somehow mask what we already know. And apparently, from what I've heard, it pretty much operated in the same vein. So I'm not going to stay too long on this one, but I'm gonna wrap up the women's portion of this with this movie right here that actually portrayed women as they should have been correctly in a movie that I think really stands out. And that is this movie right here, Hidden Figures. And shout out to TD Media Group for becoming a member of the channel. I appreciate it. Now we have this movie Hidden Figures right here that came out in 2016. It's starring Taraji P. Henson, ironically, because she's in the New Color Purple movie. You have Octavia Spencer, and then you have Janelle Monáe, about 3 Black women who worked at NASA and basically reshaped how NASA is even to this day. Now, the only issue I had with this movie was that white savior trope that they threw in there with Kevin Costner's character. They could have left that part out. But other than that, the movie was pretty good. You didn't have it where they were the stereotype. They weren't being bashing, the men and all types of stuff like that. You even had Mahershala Ali's character who came in. He was I think he was in the war, came home. He ended up falling in love with Taraji P. Henson's character. She had 3 daughters from a previous marriage because I think her husband had died. So she was pretty much like a widow. And her daughters ended up embracing this guy. He ends up marrying her and all types of stuff like that. All around good movie, except the white savior trope part. Thank you, Joseph, a military vet. Now, I have already tackled this is the women's portion of it. Now I'm about to segue into the men, because remember what it said on the thumbnail. Hollywood wants more of that. Color Purple, For Color Girls, Waiting to Exhale, all of that. They want more of that. Now I'm going to show you what Hollywood wants less of. So we're going to start with this. This classic right here. Lean on Me. Now, I know I didn't put it in the thumbnail because this was a last minute add-in. Lean on Me is one of my favorite movies. And I'm not saying that just because it came out in 89. I'm not just saying that. But it's just an all-around great story. I'm going to test y'all right quick. I want y'all to finish the line for me. They used to call me Crazy Joe. Now they call me insert. I want y'all to finish the line. I want to see how many people watch this. Pi May got it first. They used to call me Crazy Joe. Now they call me Batman. It's so many classic lines from that movie. But overall, this was a very positive movie where you have this man who wants to change the school for the better because everyone has written it out. It's based on a true story about a man named Joe Clark out of Paterson, New Jersey, who literally did run around that school with a bullhorn, by the way. He really did have that bullhorn and was getting people in check. He was straightening out the school. He was cleaning out the filth. He came in and did what the school, the counties, the superintendent was supposed to do, but he had to do this pretty much damn near on his own. This movie had a good supporting cast around it. Morgan Freeman, like, he is Joe Clark. I mean, outside of the real Joe Clark, but I mean, he is the real, like, as far as this portrayal goes. Like, of course, another line, you smoke crack, don't you? Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's another classic line in there. Like I said, that movie has so many quotable lines, and I like that it covered many different genres. Is that, you had your drama, of course, it had some comedy in there. And I like that Morgan Freeman's character was not the Joe Clark character. He wasn't one way with one particular group of kids that he wasn't with another group, because that was a pretty kind of diverse school. You had black kids there. You had your Hispanic kids that was going there. It was, I think it might have been it was some PC kids that was going there, because I remember when he was asking them to sing that school song and they sounded terrible. But they remixed that school song and made it sound better. Shout out to the singing of the school song, because remember, if you didn't know how to sing the school song in English and Spanish, you were suspended for 10 days each. Man, I love this movie. This is one of my favorite movies ever. That scene with him and Robert Gilliam when they was in the courtroom, classic. When he said, "I'm the head nigga in charge." Sometimes I find myself watching that scene every so often, and I can't even get through it with a straight face, because like I find myself chuckling a little bit because of the delivery of the line. But it was a very powerful scene. But I really did enjoy this movie because here you have this strong black man that came in and he fixed this school. He had them take that test. They passed. They all graduated. All good things. Now, I think that the real Joe Clark actually did pass away a couple years ago. So RIP to him. So that is Lean On Me. Shout out to Lean On Me. Next up, we're going to talk about, we're going to move away from the drama a little bit and we're going to go into the comic book realm. We're going to be talking about the Daywalker. Now, I'm going to test y'all on that. Though my comic book people in the chat, tell me who the Daywalker is. Somebody tell me who the Daywalker is. Blade. So I got some comic book heads up in here. And Kanira went the extra mile and said Wesley Snipes. Blade. Listen, Blade was and will always be a game changer of a film. Game changer in the sense of we up until that point really never saw a black male lead comic book character. If there were, they were a sidekick. And I don't think we even really saw that happening that much. Also, if it wasn't for Blade, I don't care what anyone else says. If it wasn't for Blade, Marvel would have had to file for bankruptcy and start selling off a lot of its property. Blade, this first Blade movie that came out in 1998, literally saved Marvel from going under. He was a Daywalker. He was born half human, half vampire. If y'all watch the movie, you know the story. And also what I like too is that they gave him this beautiful melanated black female co-star that was helping him out. And she was not the stereotype. She was a doctor. She actually was intricate to the story. She just wasn't there for eye candy. And they was cutting, slicing, shooting them vampires the fuck up. Had them turning into ash. What a time to be alive, y'all. And this was 1998. Blade is just that dude. Shout out to Wesley Snipes. But one of my favorite lines from this movie let me make sure I have it right. When they were shooting at him, when he was trying to get her out the hospital, when the cops were shooting at him, he was like, "Motherfucker, are you crazy?" That was probably one of my favorite lines in the movie, was that part when he said that, when they were shooting at his back. He was like, "I'm on your side." Like, really? He's like, "I could slice y'all like with the tip of my sword in one swipe and it'll be done." But yeah, Blade, like I said, was definitely a game changer right there. And it's crazy because it would be several years will have passed. Several years will have passed before we saw another lead for a comic book film, whether it be DC or Marvel. But we'll get to that in a second. The next movie I wanted to talk about is The Brothers. How many people in this chat is or has seen this movie? Put a 1 in the chat if you've seen The Brothers. Put a 2 if you have not. The Brothers was a pretty good movie. Oh, if you haven't seen The Brothers, you really need to watch it. So basically, this movie is surrounding these 4 men that you see on your screen. In this poster, it stars Morris Chestnut, D.L. Hughley, Bill Bellamy, and Shamar Moore. And they basically are all friends. They all grew up together. They're all in, professional careers. And they all pretty much doing their thing. And they also, like in the movie, they're talking about dealing with, relationships and all types of stuff like that. This movie right here was basically supposed to be the male response to Waiting to Exhale. This was supposed to be basically, again, like the black men version of that movie. But the difference between this movie and Waiting to Exhale is that they didn't spend this movie bashing the black women in this movie. Like, this movie had an all-star cast. Like, it had, like I said, the four men that I'm mentioning here. You had Jennifer Lewis was in it, Clifton Powell was in it, Tatiana Ali, you know, Ashley from Fresh Prince, she was in it. Dare I say, and I gotta mention her name, but I'll mention it anyway. Gabrielle Union, she was in it. Okay. But it pretty much had an all-star cat. Tamala Jones, of course, yeah, thanks, Kid Rabbit. She was in it. She played D.L. Hughley's wife. But these were all pretty much professional men. Now, the only one that they really had as a stereotype, kind of like a stereotype, was Bill Bellamy's character, because, you know, he was the one that, you know, while all the other guys were messing with black women, he was the one that was messing with a PC woman. Now, he was a professional because I think he was like a lawyer or something like that. I forgot where he actually worked, but I think he was a lawyer or something like that. And he was messing with, you know, a PC woman in the beginning of the movie, but then he got his act together and he ended up with a black woman at the end. Now, what's crazy is while the men in this movie were the focal point, a lot of the women that were around them, a lot of the black women supporting cast that was around them, probably not every character, were the ones that was kind of like you were kind of iffy about. Like, for instance, Gabrielle Union's character, she ends up starting to date Morris Chestnut's character. But then he finds out something about her past that makes him question the relationship. And basically what ends up happening is he finds out that her character was sleeping at one point with his dad. And I think he was upset that she didn't tell him initially, even after he had invited her and had him around the family and was really in the circumference of his dad, and didn't say anything. Of course, he probably would have still been hurt by it, because no one wants to hear something like that. But the fact that he had to find out through other means is what made him pissed. And I'm sure that's probably going to be anybody's, you know, gripe right there. It's like, you didn't damn, I forgot my thought. But yes, Denise, that they were dating. Again, The Brothers is another movie I haven't seen in quite some time. Then you had D.L. Hughley's character. His character in the movie was the only one that was married, but he was having like marital issues with his wife. But the thing, who was played by Tamala Jones. Now, the thing I had with her character is that in Home, of course, they were going through the issues. They were married. I think they had a couple of kids. They had issues going on in their marriage. But on the outside, when she was not with him and, you know, maybe, you know, hanging with the girls and whatnot, she always portrayed like they were in this picture perfect marriage. Like their relationship was so grand and, you know, above the fray. But it's like behind the scenes, it was a lot going on. Like, they was having some marital issues, not to the point where they were like, you know, like stepping out on each other, but just some stuff just going on in house. And even some of the women around her even was kind of looking at her with the side. I was like, you say that now, but we see how y'all are with each other. Sometimes y'all can't even hide how many issues y'all got. Yes, Kendall, and his mother wasn't a nursing home. Shout out to Marla Gibbs. Marla Gibbs played his mother, aka Florence from the Jeffersons. Now, with Shamar Moore's character, he was like he was, of course, you know, they always got Shamar Moore playing the pretty boy. You know, like that's just pretty much his career for the most part. He was always the bachelor. He was the pretty boy, can get any women he want, no matter what role he was in. He was dating this woman, and he just could not find a way to just commit to her. He wanted to, but he found it very hard to do so until the end of the movie, where she damn near, like, she almost wanted to take him out. Now, my issue that I had with her character is that she tried to be the alpha female in that relationship. If y'all remember, she was very dominant, even down to how they were in the bedroom. And that's probably why he had a problem committing to her, because he did not want to feel like he was going to be emasculated in that relationship. But they eventually, they work it out, they come to a compromise, and then it all works well for them in the end. Now, with Bill Bellamy's character, he had mommy issues. That's what his came down to. He had mommy issues because if y'all remember in the movie, it was a scene with him and his brother. It was a younger brother, and apparently the younger brother was having some problems with the law or whatever the case may be. And the mother just seemed real cold, real distant towards both of them, but especially him. Like she had some animosity. And I think it stemmed from her ex-husband. Because I think her ex-husband left her or something like that. And then on top of that, with Bill Bellamy character dating a white woman, that didn't make it no better because I think he left her for a white woman. But it was a scene in that one part right there where he tried to give his mother a hug. And she wouldn't even give him a hug. When he tried to give his mother a hug, she said in so many words, "You're too old for a hug." Basically trying to say, you're not a kid anymore. Why would I give your grown ass a hug? In so many words, that's what she was saying. So he had mommy issues. That was that scene. I'm not even going to lie. Looking at that scene as a preteen, because it came out in 01, so I was like 12, about to turn 12. I understood how heart-wrenching that scene was, and it made me so glad that I had and still do have my mother in my life, and that she would still give me a hug even to this day. But yeah, so that's pretty much a breakdown of The Brothers. Again, if you haven't seen the movie, I would highly suggest you watch it. It is a very good movie, an underrated movie at that. Now, the next movie I want to talk about is a tearjerker. I don't think there's anybody in the chat who's seen this movie who didn't shed a tear, and that is The Pursuit of Happiness, which, in my opinion, out of all of the movies Will Smith has done in his career, this one right here has to be one of his best. And the fact that he did this movie with his son, Jaden Smith, and is based on a true story about perseverance and determination and the will to be successful, and all the stuff that he had to go through in order to, pursue his dreams. Man, this movie was chilling. I think that's one of the best ways to describe this movie. Very good movie, and a good representation of a black man who has, their son with them, who just wants the best for his child. Like the stuff that he went through in this movie with his son, I think the part that probably got me the most was when they had to sleep in that subway bathroom, in that dirty subway bathroom, because it was at that point that his character knew he had hit rock bottom. It was at this point he knew he felt like he was at a dead end. When he and his son had to sleep in that bathroom stall on that dirty floor, and all he wanted to do was sell his product. I'm so glad this movie got a happy ending. And like I said, it is based on a true story. It's a real story. And I like that they gave the person that Will Smith played a cameo in the movie. Y'all, I don't know if y'all caught it or not, but it was towards the end when they were walking down the street and the person who he actually played walked right past him, and they kind of acknowledged each other. But yeah, The Pursuit of Happiness, excellent film. And see, like I said, like Inga said in the chat, she said, I can't watch The Pursuit of Happiness anymore because every time I watch it, I just fall apart crying. It's on my never to be watched again list. Again, you're not the only one. A lot of people can't get to this movie because it really brings out a lot of emotions. Like this movie made grown men cry. I think this is one of those movies where a lot of grown men at that time were crying their eyes out. Now let's move on to the next movie. Now this movie right here should have got more push than it did, but it got heavily sabotaged, and that is definitely The Birth of a Nation. Now, how ironic that today kicks off my my We Fought Back series. Of course, this is definitely going to be an episode, but it's going to be way later, of course. The Birth of a Nation, not D.W. Griffith's version, but Nate Parker's version that came out in 2016. That unfortunately got sabotaged by the same group of people who watched the first portion of the segment of the stream I'm doing right now. But I went and I saw this movie when it came out on October the 7th, 2016. And I gotta say, Nate Parker did the damn thing when it came to the making of this movie. When them studios, because he knew them studios wasn't going to give him the backing that he needed to make this movie. There's no way. It wasn't happening. But here you have the movie about Nat Turner leading one of the most famous slave rebellions ever documented back in 1831. I remember when the year this movie came out, on my original channel, when I hit 1,000 subscribers, I had went down to Southampton, Virginia, to the insurrection of where this actually happened. It's in Southampton. It's about 10 miles from the North Carolina state line. And I went there and learned some things too, because some of the locals was telling me some stuff as well. That's why I wish I still had my original channel and y'all could have saw that video. I did it kind of vlog style. But this was just an all-around good movie. It's just a shame that it, like, the backlash that came from it basically because of something that allegedly happened with Nate Parker back in his college days that he was found not guilty of. Because what they didn't want was for more movies like this to be released. This movie should have been bigger than what it was. And unfortunately, it ruined his career. Like, they got scared when they said, oh, there's going to be a lot of Oscar buzz around this movie. Imagine this man winning an Oscar for a movie about a slave rebellion where there was no white saviors like they've done with other slave movies. They were not about to have that happen. Yes, Denise Gabrielle Union was in that movie, and she literally threw him under the bus after he gave her a part. Oh, I remember all the stuff they used to say. Oh, they're showing violation scenes. Listen, they didn't listen, I saw the movie. They didn't. They insinuated that was going on, but they didn't actually show it. Unlike for colored girls that actually did. Gave that woman a part in the movie, and this is what she does. That was my beginning of my being loathsome of her. Was that moment right there. And everything else just went downhill after that. You know, when she got with Dwayne Wade, I'm not going to go into that. But Birth of a Nation is a very, very good movie. Nate Parker took a risk making this movie, and I'm sure he knew it. So if you have not watched Birth of a Nation, excuse me, be sure to watch it. Now, the last movie I'm going to talk about, and remember what I was saying about Blade, how it would be years before we saw another comic book character who was black be the lead of a film, whether it be Marvel or DC. In this case, it was Marvel. And of course, the movie I'm talking about is Black Panther. Now, Black Panther first made their big screen debut in Captain America Civil War that came out in 2016. And what a great debut it was, because I remember walking out of the theater and everybody kept asking, when is that Black Panther movie coming out? People wanted to know when that Black Panther movie was coming out after seeing a movie called Captain America Civil War. Then the following year came and they dropped the first teaser and the internet was on fire. Then they released the movie in February in Black History Month of 2018, which was risky because a lot of the times when you think about releasing a comic book movie, you think about doing it in the summertime. But they said, let's put it in Black History Month. Because they probably like, we know what we're doing, putting it in Black History Month. When I tell you this movie was a whole event, I'm sure people who went and saw this remember like how it looked. You had people dressed up in dashikis. Were wearing the garbs. All of that. Because here you have a Black superhero that was created in the 60s based off of the Black Panther Party, that is the king of a nation that is isolated from the outside world. It's never been colonized. A mineral called vibranium fuels that entire city. It is the richest mineral over there, the wealthiest nation in the world. Ran by not only by someone who was strong and durable, but also very intelligent, while being a king and still kicking ass. I can't tell you how many times I saw people do the Wakanda Forever salute that year. When Halloween rolled around, I saw so many Black Panther costumes, whether it was people who was dressed up like Black Panther or like the other characters in it. Black Panther, in case y'all did not know, is the highest grossing solo Marvel movie to date. When that movie came out, it was #1 in the box office for an entire month. That movie stayed in the theaters for so long, they had to pull it out of the theaters prematurely to make room for their Blu-ray sales. That movie came out on February 18, 2018. They had to pull it out of the theaters at the end of April to make room for the Blu-ray that came out like the following week. They projected that this movie was only going to make $90 million when they did their first week projections. They was like, oh, really now? And I think when that movie came out, it made double or more than double that. And that was just domestic. By the time this movie got out of the theaters, it had made about $780 million domestically. And like I forgot exactly what the number was exactly globally, but it was well over $1 billion, making it the first solo Marvel movie to crack $1 billion. Because all the other ones were group movies. This was the first solo movie to do it. Black Panther became a global phenomenon damn near overnight. Now, you saw the rundown that I did of all the male movies and all the female movies. Now, the biggest question you have to ask yourself is this. When you look at how that's been ran down, why is it that Hollywood decides to want to push one narrative over the other? I'm going to leave it up to y'all. So I'm going to post the link right here in the chat and we can go ahead and discuss. I'll leave it open to maybe about 1:40 since it's a little after 1 now. So if anybody would like to come up and discuss, feel free to do so. Follow J. You made it up here first this time.
Yep, how you doing, man? Had to.
Well, welcome. What you got to say on the topic?
It's sad because it's like they're trying. It's just like what's the word I want to say? They're basically trying to say that black men aren't good enough anymore. After I would say after Chad would die, but I think it's this. It's I don't. I just think they just don't see the value in black men anymore.
It's funny you said that because what they ended up doing when he passed, they ended up killing off the T'Challa character. I was like, wait a minute. He has more story to tell. He has way more story to tell. And I said he would be a good segue. The T'Challa character would be a good segue to bring in the X-Men via Storm, because remember, he and Storm were married in the comics.
Yeah. I don't think they even going by the comments as much, but I did like the fact that they gave him a son, so his son could hopefully take over. I mean, because everybody knew Black Panther 2 wasn't going to do well after he passed. I mean, that wasn't a knock to the cast, but I mean, it was what it was because people didn't want to go watch it because people didn't want to go watch it and cry.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how it was, but I don't know. I think they're just trying to emasculate black men all over again. And then they're going to see the value and like, wait a minute, we need to go back to black men because some of these black women ain't hitting no shit. No, I'm not saying they can't lead, but you can't try to push one narrative to push another one. Mm-hmm. Try to make us look bad.
That's why I was saying, I said, again, this is not saying that black women can lead. That's why I pulled up the movie Hidden Figures. I said the only thing I had an issue was with when they added that white savior trope with Kevin Costner's character, because that wasn't there. But besides that you had 3 black women right there that were pretty much, carrying that movie and doing something very positive. But that doesn't get pushed. I could have easily put that on the side of where I put in less of this, but I wanted to keep it separate. But again, that's not something that's going to be idealistic in Hollywood.
Yeah. I like how you just said that right then. But I mean, it's what goes around comes around, man, because they're going to end up figuring out, like, wait a minute, they make us money, but they're not making us money. You understand what I'm saying? Like, I didn't go watch the Color Purple. I already seen the Color Purple once. I ain't trying to go look at it again. No disrespect. There's a reason why it did good the first day and then it fell off the second day. There's a reason for that. But anyway, man, it is what it is. What goes around comes around. That's all I got to say.
Right. Well, thank you for coming.
Appreciation.
Shout out to Wallow J. Next up, we got Joseph Washington. What's going on?
Good morning, Tonya. Good morning, chat room. Happy to be second in this panel. But yeah, I really hope you do a gaming segment of this topic, because we're seeing some of the same things in the gaming industry as well. Portrayals of like black people who are the stereotype, and very few who are shown in an esteemed and dignified manner. Sorry I missed your We Fought Back on Prologue, but I will be watching the replay of it, and I look forward to that series.
Oh, definitely. Like I said, we got a long way to go when it comes to that series. That was just the prologue. We haven't even touched the episodes yet, but the first official episode will be coming a week from today at 11 a.m. Eastern time.
And that's good to hear. And I'm so glad you brought up Blade Wesley Snipes, because when I saw the VGA Awards trailer for the Blade game done by Bethesda, that's kind of the vibe I got from that screenshot that they did of the game.
And it's what's so crazy is because it's another Blade poster, like a movie poster, like the one I showed on the stream, that was like the main one. But there is another one where Blade does have his back turned and he does have his arm reached up to grab the sword. And when I do look at the Blade game trailer, how they ended it off, that's exactly what it looks like. And that's another thing interesting that you bring up games. They're just now about to drop a Blade game after how many years?
Yeah. Oh, a little known fact. After the 1998 Wesley Snipes Blade movie came out and did numbers, they actually released a game on PlayStation 1 with a similar title. But the thing of it was, because the graphics weren't like up to par to what we saw in the movie, it kind of fell off.
Yeah, see, I wouldn't have known about this. Yeah, I didn't. I learned something new today. I didn't even know that.
Yeah, but now that we're in the era of Unreal Engine 5.
Mm-hmm.
Now they could crank out these titles with the speed and the function that this engine is looking to produce.
Mm-hmm.
And when I mentioned games and like black people being portrayed in an esteemed and dignified manner, you got characters like Miles Morales, who made his bones in the comics and became the mainstream favorite of Spider-Man among readers.
Yeah.
And people who didn't know who Miles Morales was in the books got a great introduction to him in the games.
Yeah, now like with Insomniac, they about to make him like the main Spider-Man, going forward, like as far as when they do the next Spider-Man game. And of course, who the usual suspects lost their minds trying to talk about, well, he's not Spider-Man.
I believe more often than not, they've shown the torch being passed to him and him getting more screen time. Going forward, it's like, change is inevitable and the companies are going to go with what's marketable. And what's marketable right now is black people, like it or not.
Right. And then on top of that, Spider-Verse was a very, very good movie. Across the Spider-Verse was phenomenal. I expressed that much in my review that I did last year of it.
People all over reaction channels are like, yo, when is part 2 of Beyond the Spider-Verse coming out? Like, when is the next, edition of this? Because they said it's gonna be a 3-parter.
Yeah.
And if they're gonna go,
the next one will be the last part, called Beyond the Spider-Verse. It was supposed to come out now this year, but because of the writer's strike, they had to delay it, so it most likely won't come out until next year.
Same time GTA 6 coming out. Man,
mm-hmm.
we haven't even gone to, past the starting line of 2024, and things are like, already, lining up, hopefully to be good now that the writer strike is down. People should start to see more value in the writers they got, especially the black ones, who are trying to do the best they can to push as much of the dialogue of black society without, quote, going over the edge or making the directors and producers' chairs shake like it's an earthquake.
Mm-hmm. We'll see.
Anyway, thanks for having me up. But I really hope you do this topic again, touching on games, because you have some esteemed and dignified roles that you see black characters have. One example is Assassin's Creed. 2 examples I'm gonna leave with you is Assassin's Creed Origins and Assassin's Creed Freedom Cry. Now, Freedom Cry, they were tiptoeing into the history of the Haitian Revolution.
Mm-hmm.
And Origins, it basically showed a mother and father forming the brotherhood to avenge the death of their son by the Roman campaign occupying Egypt.
Right.
Anyway, just a thought. It's your channel, not mine.
Yeah, because I'm not really much of a gamer, so like if I was to do that, I would have to really, really, really look into that. Opposed to like this topic, this was very easy for me to talk about. It was very easy for me to cover.
I'm surprised you didn't bring up the Equalizer, the Denzel Washington trilogy.
Yeah, like I said, it's so many movies. But I wanted to limit it to just a certain select few. But yeah, the Equalizer is another good one as well, and Antoine Fisher.
Definitely. As soon as this next Netflix bug gets dealt with, I'm gonna watch the Equalizer 3.
Cool. That was a really good movie. A good way to end the series.
Definitely. Right. Thanks for having me on.
Coming up. No problem. Shout out to Joseph. Next up, we have Cosmo Fury. What's going on?
Hey, what's going on? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
All right. Yeah, in regards to this, you ever notice you be talking about images and how it's come across? You ever notice the whole new dynamic that they had to give Michonne with Rick, which never existed in the comic book?
Mm-hmm.
You notice that that's how they want it to be portrayed. But let it be that Cheerios commercial. Remember that with the
Oh
father?
yeah, yeah. I remember that.
Woo! Yes, and that's what it is. You either got to be like the women got to be under the boot of Mr. Charlie or under his enchantment, or you got to be a stereotypical black character or a black person. So, and what I didn't understand was how so many people who claim to be against that bastardized version of wokeness had nothing to say. They have nothing to say about that
Yep, they be talking out both sides of their neck every single time.
every time. And God, what was the other thing I wanted to talk about? But I'm not going to be here too long on this one. It was also remember the Miles Davis movie.
Yep, I know exactly where you're going with this.
Yes. Remember he couldn't get money for it until they put you were talking about Kevin Costner until they put Ewan McGregor in it.
Like
And he,
a fictional character that did not exist at any point in Miles Davis's life, but they said that we needed you to have a white character in there, and he's your friend, but he never existed.
yeah, like I mean, I can let Black Panther slide for the simple fact that Martin Freeman's character exists in the comic book.
Hmm.
That was the thing about it. That character exists in the comic book, but they made a whole new character. It's like the Bigger Long situation. Who's Bigger Long?
Yeah, and I didn't watch it. In that Harriet movie, they made a whole fictional black character that was like literally the epitome of an Uncle Ruckus.
Exactly. And you know, you already said it earlier. They pretty much they black faced Mister because
Hmm.
come on now. Come on. Who has all this land and had all this power back then as a black man?
Exactly. Yep, I remember that. That was like one of the first things I heard about that movie. I was like, who the hell is Bigger Long? What is that? I kept seeing it pop up. And then when I finally saw what it was, I said, oh, they went there with that one.
Yeah, and people actually called out the woman who did this film. Like black men were at the what was it, a press conference or something,
Hmm.
and they was talking to her about it, and she just was like, well, making up excuses. Like she was very dismissive, and I was like, I'm not even watching this movie. I already read about Bigger Long. I was like, you know what, I'm done.
Right.
But let me get back to working out. Thanks for having me up.
No
Be
problem.
one, everyone.
We won. Shout out to Cosm of Fury for coming up. Next up, we have Mansa Musa 93. What's going on?
Hey, what's going on, man? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
All right, cool. First of all, man, shout out to you for doing your thing, man. I've been a subscriber for like a couple months now, so. But
Appreciate
I
it.
did want to, since you brought up this topic, man, I wanted to bring up one of the movies I mentioned in the chat. Have you ever seen South Central with Glenn Plummer?
I've seen bits and pieces of it, but I've never sat down and watched it. As a matter of fact, every time I sit down to, I have caught it. It was always at the end, like at that last part. I always caught it at the same part, so I never got a chance to sit and watch it from beginning to end.
Yeah, it was like a story. It was kind of like a story of redemption, kind of. It was like he came from the streets, you know what I'm saying? He had an upbringing. It was a rough upbringing, of course, living in South Central. And he had joined a gang called, I think it was called the Hoover Deuces, the Deuces, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And he just spent most of the movie just trying to get himself together. Like he knows what he was doing wasn't the right shit. He got locked up. Pardon my language. He got locked up. Then he had a son. So you start to see how things started changing all around him.
Mm-hmm.
Everything around him just started changing. He started to see the people around him started changing. And then, like you said, if you caught the ending of it, of course, then you see that eventually his
Yeah, I see
son
like
got.
I see the resolution of it.
Yeah. And to me, at that moment, when I seen that part, the ending of that movie was like a real tearjerker for me because everything that he went through to keep his son from doing the same thing that he did. When he
Mm-hmm.
went and got his son back from those guys that he was doing the dirt with, like he clearly changed his life around, and he didn't want his son doing that shit. When he came and got his son, bro, at that moment when I looked at that specific scene, bro, it brought tears to my eyes because it was a love of a father that was like, bro, you're not going this way. You're not going
Exactly.
this way. No, sir. No, sir. and that was a great movie. A great movie. That, and I wanted to say it was another movie out there that was like that. But also want to credit to the guy, the previous caller before Kazuma, speaking on the gaming industry. There are a lot of games out here that have black representation, but in a sense of like they play the background character, or they
Yeah.
use the black man to pin themselves against a black woman. There's a game called Deathloop, where there's this black man who's stuck in like a Groundhog Day type scenario, and he's fighting against this black woman. If and I don't know anybody who plays any games in here. I don't want to spoil it, but I will just for this one, just for the sake of argument, I will spoil it a little bit. He ends up, I think it's his daughter he's going against. He has to kill his own daughter, which is it's crazy. I was like, oh, so it was a good game, but you see how they try to like spin some of that stuff, and I notice it in some of these games nowadays. So it's strange out here. It's real strange. The message gets lost sometimes, and it's like when you're dealing with people who does these things, movie, films, video games, you see they're all intertwined with how they're using that. Sometimes you might get good games that tell a decent story. Sometimes you're gonna get good games that's gonna make you look like the villain. So it's like you gotta take some of this stuff with a grain of salt when you see it. And speak previously to that, they did have a Blade game. It was based on Blade 2, the movie. It came out for the PS2 and Xbox, like back in like, of course, when the movie came out. It was like 2002, 2003.
I must have missed that.
Yeah, they had a game. It was old though, but it's not like this new game that like it's going to be absolute fire if they know what they're doing. If they know what they're doing, it could be a real, yeah, it could be real good. But other than that, man, yeah, there's some good movies out there. You just gotta find them. There's some real good movies. I think The Wood is one of them. I like The Wood.
Oh yeah, The Wood is a classic.
The Wood is a straight classic. You gonna let him you in front of the homies like that? You ain't no writer. You ain't no writer. Like it's hilarious. It's good, man. But that's really all I had to say at the moment. But there's some gems out there, man. Y'all gotta find them. And whoever brings up the ones, I definitely check them out for any ones that I haven't seen. But that's all I got to say, man. Peace to you. B1, Torian.
B1. But yeah, the Wood is definitely a classic. And yes, the Hula game, Luke Cage was very good. I actually prefer the first season over the second season to me. But both seasons were good. I wish they would have continued with the story. But Luke Cage was definitely good. Luke Cage, when the show first came out, it shut down Netflix. Like the Netflix server had got blocked, and I think that's the first time that ever happened because everybody was trying to watch it at the same time. And when people tried to watch it, I think it was like the server got crashed for like damn near an hour. Like people was upset, but I don't think that Netflix server has ever done that before. But that just shows you how many people was craving that character, especially after he made his debut in Jessica Jones. So more and more people have wanted to watch his show. But yeah, Luke Cage is another good one as well. But anyway, y'all, I'm getting ready to shut it down. I know I said I was gonna keep it up until 140, but I actually have to finish editing this video that I just recorded. I was actually in the process of editing it while I had the intro music playing in the background. So now I need to go back and finish editing it. But shout out to everybody that came through for this particular, the midday stream. Shout out to everybody that came up and spoke their piece on it. Shout out to everybody that's in the chat. Those who are new members of the channel, Detroit King 313 and TD Media Group. I appreciate you coming through. And also shout out to, I'm not going to say their name, but they sent me a Cash App. Their initials are JH. I appreciate you. Shout out to the people on Patreon, my members, the people on Instagram, Twitter, and in Discord. Of course, we'll be back here tomorrow for the 11 a.m. Eastern time video. Also, for those catching the playback, just let me know down in the chat what other movies besides the ones that I've already left up that I went through do you feel like are either a bad, I would say, like showing like a certain imagery of the women and also showing a certain imagery of the men. Let's get the conversation popping. Y'all be safe out there and be one.